Okay. So, remember today, the primary thing that we are going to do is to start with, obviously today's class is very important. We are going to focus on writing tasks, general as in letter writing and essay writing. Uh, See, I have given a lot of sample responses in this particular question, this itself, this entire, I think it's 60 pages, I think around 100 slides. It's good enough for you. uh, just focus on that and look at it very carefully when you're practicing at home. Okay, so now the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to do the letter writing part of it. So let's start with the letter writing now. First, task one, like in academic, you are now doing the general letter writing. So first thing you have to understand is letter writing. Whether you're doing letter writing in general or you're doing academic task 1, as I told you, that the weightage is not that much. So remember, you have to focus on the next part of today's class, that's your essay writing much more. But still, what are the things in letter writing? Now, you will again have 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, you have to write a letter. The letters can be of any type, as in, you can get a formal letter, you can get an informal letter and a semi-formal. Now the difference between formal, informal and semi-formal I'll tell you. But in short, you're going to get a letter that you have to write. Now the letters that you're going to get will also be of various types. As in, you can get a request letter, an apology letter, a appointment letter, asking for information letter. So there are various types of letters that you're going to get. Now, let us first see what are the different types of letter writing. Formal is always for people who you do not know at all or you hardly know. For example, you are writing a letter to the editor, or you are complaining to a bank or a store. You do not know that person, or you partially know. That becomes semi-formal. But as such, formal is writing letters to the, like, all letters to the editors or letters to anybody who you do not know personally. That's your formal letter. So the language of a formal letter is going to be very precise, very short sentences to the point. Semi-formal letters are letters wherein you know the person, but they are not your friends. They're just your acquaintance. They're not your friends. You know the person, and there's a sort of a relationship which is not at all friendly. It's a formal type of a relationship. So it can be complaining to a landlord question or explaining something to a neighbor or a professor, you're asking for permission. So these are all your semi-formal letters. Now normally there is not a lot of difference between a formal and a semi-formal letter as far as the language goes. But just they are slightly, I can say that semi-formal, the language of semi-formal can be slightly semi-formal also. So when you understand what I mean by semi-formal when I'm going through the examples. The informal are the easiest types of letters where you're writing to your friend or family members. You can use exactly whatever words you use. You can use contractions. A whole lot of things are applicable when you're giving an informal letter. So there are these 3 types of letters that you're going to get. And remember, they have only 33%, to be precise, 33% of the weightage. Now, as in all writing tasks, you are going to focus on all the 4 criteria. The first part is going to be task achievement, as in you have to meet all the requirements that are provided. So the question will have always 3 bullet points. Are you covering all the 3 bullet points? And you have to have paragraphs, introduction, 3 body, and a short conclusion. You have to have a lexical resource, which is wide range of vocab, no spelling errors, and correct use of tenses. Last is your grammatical range and accuracy, or GRA. So these are the 4 areas on which your entire writing task is going to be decided. Remember, each of them carry exactly the same weightage. 25% in each. 25% on lexical resources, 25% on GRA, grammatical range and accuracy, task achievement, and coherence, as in your organization of paragraph, you're linking up ideas, your ideas being presented logically. It's not, jumping from one idea to another, but it has a logical progression. So don't think that task achievement carries more weightage and this carries slightly less weightage. No, exactly 25 each. 25, 25, 25, 25. That's the way it's totally divided. Exact weightage in all the 4 sections. So normally, if I could have shown you one typical examiner's question paper, so all the trainings that we have gone, so basically every nowadays I've stopped going, but every 2 years we attend this training program, which is conducted by either ITP or British Council. It's a teachers training program. So in that we are taught how to grade, how to teach you all, how to focus on different aspects, if there is any change and all that. So in that they clearly told us that please tell test takers that there's absolutely equal weightage in all the 4 sections. Don't assume that task achievement or the content carries more weightage than grammatical range or the vocab. No, it's exactly the same. Okay. Now, the entire, so let's talk about the exact structure of a letter that you have done during your school. You have to open with a salutation, and you will always have, when I show you the letter, you'll understand that they'll always give you 3 bullet points. First paragraph will address the first bullet point, second para, second, then you have a third paragraph. So basically 3 paragraphs and a concluding sentence. You have to give a farewell, goodbye, and signature is optional, but I would say use a signature. So now, for example, let's look at this question taken from a question paper. The question is, you live in a room in a college which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement and you find it very difficult to work. Write a letter to the accommodation officer. So you can totally understand that it's a semi-formal letter. Write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college. In the letter, you have to focus on 3 different aspects. You have to describe the situation. You have to explain your problem and why it is difficult to work. And the third is, say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. Now, the first thing that you're going to do whenever you get the letter writing is to focus on all the 3 bullet points very, very carefully to understand that each of my paragraphs in the body, what will I focus? What is my main focus area when I'm looking at the body? So, the word describe or the word explain or the word say. Say next week when we are going to do the cue card listening section on Thursday, you will understand how these things matter a lot. The elaboration of a concept. So when the question is describe the situation, you have to actually describe the situation. You have to describe the problem. You have to describe the situation. You have to explain your problem and also say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. Now, if you look at it, the describe para and the explain para can be slightly longer than the say para. Because when you have illustrate, describe, explain, elaborate, that means you are supposed to be slightly more descriptive than when you are told that say something. So these are the things you have to understand. So at times you will see that the paragraphs may not be of equal weightage. For example, 5 lines per para, but it can be 5 lines, and the last para can be only 2 lines, okay, or 3 lines. So that is something that you have to understand, that what to do. Now, when you are writing the paras, it has to follow the same flow for the logical coherence part of it. Okay, you have to describe first para, you have to explain in a second para, and you have to say what kind of accommodation you are going to do. Now, what is the meaning of tone of the letter? I'm going to come to that later. You have to understand the tone. What is the tone that the author is using? Now, for example, if you have a complaint letter, so remember this is actually really good. I want you to focus on these at home later when you're preparing. And This will give you a clear idea as to how would you start the letter. Always remember, in earlier days, when your parents or I won't say parents, your grandparents would write a letter, we would always write subject, then give a colon, and then you would write a subject. As in, why are you writing the letter? Nowadays, that concept has gone. You don't write the subject, but your first line has to be the introduction of the letter. Like, are you writing to express your dissatisfaction with a product? Are you writing to show appreciation? Are you trying to make an application? So you look at your question, and based on the question, you will start the letter by, I am writing to express. So why are you writing? Always start with I am writing. Unless you have an informal letter where you can start with anything. Hi, hello, how's life? You can give contraction. Informal letter, the tone has to be very friendly and informal. Remember that. For that, you get marks. Now, so all these words, whether you want to write express my dissatisfaction with, or express my annoyance with, or to complain about, okay, all those words you have to decide. Now, for example, if you have an invitation, so this is what I meant by understanding the tone. From the starting, you have to understand what is the tone in the passage. Is it a positive letter, negative letter, or is it just see, no, advice letter is a neutral letter. I am happy to advise you that you will at times see letters in which you are asked to provide an advice about something. For example, there's a question which is like quite a common question. You are already in the third year of college, and somebody from your hometown wants to get admission in the same university or college, and what are you going to advise him? Something like that. That's a very common question. Then you someone has invited you for a party, and at times the invitation reply to the invitation can be in positive a positive response, that I would be delighted to come, or a letter in which you very politely refuse the invitation because you have some other commitment. Now, depending on uh, the three bullet points, the invitation letter can be an acceptance letter or a rejection letter. Similarly, application for a job, you at times you might be given a job application letter where you have to accept the offer. Normally, they don't give you rejection letter, but acceptance letter. Lots of times they'll give you letters in which they are complaining about something. For example, you had again common letters I'm just picking up. You have a party, and the neighbors have complained that there was a lot of sound, or your dog, I'll tell you some common letters, or your dog has been going to the neighbor area, the neighboring area, and it is for example shitting there, things like that. Okay, so all those letters you can get. So these are the words which I want you to read when it is something bad. How do you start? Do you start with I regret to inform, or I'm sorry to tell, which is informal? Semi-formal will be regret. I regret. So regret and afraid is can also be semi-formal. So these are all the languages that you are supposed to use when you're writing the letter. I'm writing to inquire, I'm writing to find out. So all these are letter writings. When you're trying to thank, I can't thank you enough. No words can express my gratitude. Okay, so you decide it, don't get confused with all the words. This is just to give you samples of various words. Whatever you are comfortable with, just memorize those words and or write it in your notebook. Don't try to read everything and get confused on the exam day. That is something which many of my students have told me, that ultimately on the day of the exam they got totally confused which one to start with and which one not to start with. Okay, now look at this letter. This is a letter. Always remember, the moment you look at the letter, for example, you have received a letter from your university, the University of Cambridge, demanding a reason for your absence from an exam. You were ill that day but failed to submit the evidence. So you are writing a letter to the examination committee. So it's an apology letter. So firstly, immediately understand what is the letter type that you get. So apology for the situation. Now remember, here the word apology was directly written. Now you might not get the word exact word at times. Okay, at times you might have to infer. Okay, fine. This is an apology letter. This is an appreciation letter. It's very easy to understand. But by chance, if they are not very explicitly stating, just understand. Then you have to immediately. So this is the second bullet point is identification for yourself. Name, student number, case number. Now, if you look at it, these two are not that important because it does not start with describe or explain, but the third part, so it has 4 parts. The first 2 parts can be 1 line, 2 line max. Now the third part and the fourth part are the parts where you need to explain what had happened and possible evidence you may consider and possible resolutions. Now this is another thing which I want you to understand. In essay writing or in letter writing, if you get resolutions, you cannot give a single resolution. Resolutions means resolutions. It has to be more than one. If it says suggest measures, it has to be measures, as in at least 2 to 3. It can't be only one, especially when we are doing problem solution essays. You cannot write only one solution when it says provide solutions. So you have to be very careful. So now this is the letter apology, identification for yourself, explanation and possible resolution. So first para is always, because it's not an explain or describe, so just 1 line. I am writing in response to your letter regarding my unauthorized absence. Remember, it's a semi-formal letter. Language have to be very crisp. That's the language that we use. Crisp language. To the point, no extra detail. Just what is being asked, just say that. No extra. Especially because it's a formal letter. I think it's a semi-formal letter. You have to be very specific about the dates as if it's a real thing. Remember, as if it's a real answer that you're giving. So always mention dates and times if it's possible, because that will really help you. Now second point, apologies for the situation. Now identification, my name is Shweta Gupta, student number, and I would first like to sincerely apologize for failing to properly notify the university of my inability to attend the examination last Tuesday. Because here they have only told you to write this much, so that is the only thing that you're going to write. Unnecessarily no expansion in task 1. Remember that. Task 2, you have to do all those stuff. Task 1, don't spend more than 20 minutes. Remember, always remember this. Don't ever spend more than 20 minutes. Now, when the third part is explanation of what had happened and any possible evidence you may have. Now, in this, you are going to explain. So, the explanation should be quite a lot of, so if you look at it, it will be around 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 10 20 30 40 50 60 almost 85 lines only on explanation. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 10 20 30 40 60 70 80, almost 85 lines only on explanation. So unfortunately, I awoke in hospital on the morning of examination and was informed that I had been found unconscious lying on the pavement by the bus stop. Now this is too much. Okay. A member of the public had called an ambulance and I was admitted to the local general hospital where I regained consciousness several hours later. As I was required to remain in hospital for several days, I was unable to make contact with the university. Now this answer as such is slightly exaggerated. I don't want you all to give any exaggerated answers, which is somehow slightly exaggerated. Give slightly something which is feasible instead of exaggerating an answer. You actually will not end up getting a higher score. You'll end up getting a slightly. Now this answer, even if it's everything is everything is perfect, the student is not going to get a 8.5. He might get an 8 because something which is unlikely. I won't say it's impossible, but not that possible. Now, for example, this one, resolution. So this is long compared to this. So this could have been slightly shorter and the resolution can be slightly longer because resolutions are there. To rectify this issue, I would like to request that the committee permit me to take the examination on another day or to substitute the grade for an average taken from my previous work. Okay, fine. Given 2 options, that's more than enough. It's given in 1 sentence, that's fine. So you can actually because it's resolution, you can give at least 2 You have to give at least 2, if not 3. Now, so you have covered all the 3 points. Then the last line, remember that the last line before you sign up should always be the reiteration of what the letter's tone is supposed to be. So if it's an appreciation letter, you will end with that word. If it's an apology letter, you have to end with that. If it's an application letter, you have to end with a line in which I'll show you some sample responses, you'll understand. So my apologies once again. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Now this line is also important. So if you look at it, 4 paragraphs, because here you have 4 bullet points. Normally most of the time, 75 to 80% of the time, you have 3 bullet points. So if you have 4 bullet points, you have to have 4 paragraphs plus 1 single line for coming to a conclusion, and everything has to be left sided. Okay, everything is left alignment, no right, nothing should be written in the right. Remember, it has to be followed. In letter writing, the logical coherence and cohesion is very important. The moment it is not in this line, you have to maintain. Okay, this entire thing has to be in the same line. So this is what you have to do. So again, I'm just now with some of the letters, I'm just going to go through it briefly. See, remember, next week the classes will be more like you have to do and I'm going to discuss. It will be more what do I say, you doing and I giving you feedback in the session itself. Okay, so now a brief introduction. So now what is the letter? School library is seeking application for a job of a summer break. You are writing a letter to the manager. A brief introduction of yourself. So because it says brief, you have to give at least 2 to 3 lines. So it does not say just introduce yourself and 1 or 2 lines. Because it says brief introduction, you have to give a brief introduction, your experience, your relevant skill, and why you want the job. So now again, my name is Anand Bhandari. You have to use your same name. Okay, I am studying biology and I am planning to do graduate studies. I am writing, always remember, first paragraph has to introduce the subject. So you could have started by saying, I am writing to express my interest in the open job position at the school library. My name is Anand Bhandari and I am a 3rd year student. You can do it this way. This is a better way of doing, as in this should be the starting line. So at times I'm also giving you various options and also incorrect. I'm going to show you some incorrect formation of sentences also. So this one is fine. I saw the advertisement posted on the job in the career thing. Now your experience. Now in the experience, now if you look at this experience, while I was in high school, I worked as a volunteer at my local library. I helped the other librarians with checking out books, returning books to the shelves and answering the telephones. I spent a year as a volunteer there. Now, here, why is the student going to get less marks? You wrote about your 1 year experience as a volunteer, but what are the skills that you have understood? Do you have, so if I, for example, if you are helping as a librarian, okay, or so what are the skills of a librarian are you writing? So for example, if I am looking for a librarian for my college, okay, so now I will not take someone who just writes that I have got a I have got experience, but I would say that, okay, do I know cataloging, do I know documentation, are my computer skills good, do I have a very good idea about where magazines, newspapers are segregated, and how the books are, so something to do with the librarian skills. I just randomly made up things, but like that would come to my mind if I'm talking about a librarian skill. Or I would say that time management, finding out the correct information and helping the clients with finding out the, books and all that. So something you have to write. Where is the skill? The student does not write about the skill. So what happens is that if he does not write, he does not get score because he has not, task achievement point is you have to cover every possible thing. So you get lesser score for that. Now why you want the job? It would be great because I still need some time to study. It's a part-time position. That's the reason he wants the job. I have some relevant experience. I am a person dedicated to doing a good job. I am available at your convenience and can be reached by phone or email. Okay, now this letter will not get more than 7. Why? Because it does not give one ending line. Thank you for the consideration. Something like that. Anything. You have to give one more line. So this letter will not get the student more than a maximum 7 score. Max. That's a max, I'm telling you. It's not a... It's definitely not a 6.5 or a 7. 6.5 to 7. Not more than that for sure. Now, letter someone who lost his suitcase in the airline. Explain what happened. Now look at this word. Explain, describe. Explain what happened. Describe your situation. Find out what they are going to do. So I am writing with regard to my suitcase which was lost on this. Always be very, very specific with the dates and time, or like which flight you are catching, or which, for example, which hotel or which university. Now, this is the explanation. I checked my baggage in London, yet when I went to collect it at the baggage claim, the suitcase did not appear. A representative at the airport opened a case regarding the suitcase. So this is the case number, and said that someone would be in touch with me within 48 hours. A week has now passed. However, I have not received any updates. Good answer. Next. Describe your suitcase. The bag is 20-inch charcoal grey heart-side Samsonite suitcase. It has 4 wheels and there is a black leather luggage tag bearing my contact information. Inside the bag, I have 2 pairs of shoes, several items of clothing, and including 3 men's dress shirt and 2 pairs. So covering everything. Next, find out what they are going to do about it. I'm extremely disappointed that I have not been contacted by any representative. So you should have understood that this was a letter of complaint, because you have not heard back from them. So my first line can also be, I am extremely disappointed with the service of Indigo Airlines regarding the loss of my suitcase, and then I give in details, and then I reiterate that again. I'm extremely disappointed that I have not been contacted by any representatives of your airlines, and even more so by the failure to return my suitcase. I would like some information. So find out what they're going to do. I would like some information regarding the whereabouts of my bag as soon as possible, as the personal items in the suitcases are of great importance to me. I was informed by the airline representative that I may be entitled to monetary compensation in this event. So this line, please inform me regarding this matter, can come later also. Like, I think, this was my mistake. I wrote it here. It should actually come in the next line. So this is a very good answer. Yeah, okay, sorry. I got it. And because I remember there was once closing line. I thank you in advance and look forward to hearing from you. Now, this answer will give the student an 8 or an 8.5. Grammatically correct, logical coherence and cohesion, good vocab. Based on that, like, the vocab is good enough. Because describing the suitcase and explain what happened, you can't do anything much. Grammatically right. So this answer will give the student an 8 or an 8.5. So this is what you have to do. Okay. So I want you all to read all the letters just to get an idea as to how you have to do. Now we are going to start. So I've added a lot of letters for you all, so that you will not have any problem in understanding the different things. Just remember whatever I told you, same thing. End with either yours sincerely or yours faithfully. You use your full name. Don't sign. Don't sign. Just you see now appreciation letter. I'm going to show you one appreciation letter. Write a letter. No, this is a complaint letter. No, so let's see. I think appreciation, I can't understand. Write a letter to your favorite restaurant. Okay, no, so it's an appreciation letter. Write a letter to your favorite restaurant. Include the following: your reason for writing, what you like about the restaurant, and suggestions for improvement. Dear Mr. Robertson, so don't, in a semi-formal letter, you can just make up a name. You can, I would say formal letter, write sir and madam. In a semi-formal letter, use Mr. Robertson or Mrs. Make up any name. An informal start with dearest, hello, dear, depending on who you are writing to, whatever. Learn the change of tone with every possible letter writing. So I recently ate at your restaurant, famously grilled, and I would like to write to express my gratitude for operating such a great establishment. What you like about the restaurant? I've eaten at your restaurant many times, and every meal I have had there has been truly delicious. I've tried many of your entries, but my absolute favorite is the chicken parmigiana, which please don't ever change the recipe. It is incredible. Now, what happens here is when you write a letter related to food, for example, or in a speaking, you have a question related to food. Now, what would give you more marks? Now, this answer can give the student a 7.5, may not get 8, because there are some common words like cuisine or succulent. So the more better vocab you use, obviously the better score you get. Instead of incredible food, with food, what word would obviously matter more? You can say mouth watering. Okay, so these are termed as thematic vocabulary. Remember, these are very important words for your essay writing section primarily. Based on the theme, so I'll just give you a whole lot of examples of thematic vocabulary. So based on the theme, are you writing words based on that? So for example, I would say scrumptious meal, savory, okay, yummy, scrummy, delicious, palatable, appealing. So there are lots of words which are in the food group. So whenever you have words in that theme, if you can write, remember you will definitely get an 8, 8.5. There's no way you're not going to get an 8, 8.5. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you one of my students' result today. Mm. And you will see that how he got a 8, 8 in writing, 9 in listening, 9 in reading, and so basically it's 8, 8.599. Okay, so remember, it's absolutely possible to get a high score in your IELTS exam. But you have to follow the directions and focus on the vocab. So I love the decoration. So you're talking about the decor. You're talking about the demeanor. You're talking, for example, if I'm talking about, when we say demeanor, demeanor means what? The outward behavior, the manner, the way a person is. Like for example, I'm talking about all the waiters and how they are behaving, and you like the way they do. So decorations will not really, it's not a thematic vocabulary. So what happens is that though the answer is very good, the student will not get more than 7.5. May get an 8, may not get an 8, definitely not an 8. But I would say it's not an 8 answer, it's a 7.5 answer. Because I'll tell you why. Because this is a topic where you can use words. So there are some topics where you can't use words, so they are okay. The words where you can use a lot of words, you will definitely have to use such thematic vocab. Now I have one request. I'm planning on throwing a surprise because it's suggestion for improvement for my wife, and I'm wondering if it's possible to hold the party at your restaurant. That is not a suggestion for improvement. So what happens? The student ends up getting a 7.5 because the answer should start with this word that, like for example, everything is good, but you felt that the waiting time is a bit long, or the portion size is slightly less compared to the pricing. That would be suggestions for improvement, not that I'm going to throw a party and I'm wondering if it's possible to. So that's not a suggestion. So this is called deviation from the topic. Now this is something which I want all of you to focus. There's a tendency that if you don't read a question properly, whether it's a speaking or a writing, you tend to deviate from the topic. So you have to be very, very careful that you don't deviate from the topic at all. If the topic, be very careful when you're reading the question and answer accordingly. So this score will come down to 7, between 7 and 7.5. Please let me know either by email or phone as to whether or not we can make this happen. So remember the letters that I have posted here. Some of the letters are also incorrect. I want you all to understand the ones which are not 100% right letters and the ones which are very good letters. Also, when you are looking at the letter, look at explain. Has he explained? Give some ideas about something. It's an informal letter. Has he given ideas? Yeah. So this is an informal letter. So focus, read all of this. Okay. So now I'm going to go to, I want all of you to write a letter. Anyway, I'm going to do that with you all next week when we are, doing in the class. I'm going to make you all do, someone will do introduction, someone body. So if within 5 to 7 minutes, you have to think of an idea of a second para or a third paragraph and you have to write and let me know. Okay. Because anyway, you don't have more than 4 to 5 minutes to think. Now let's come to the most important part of our essay writing section. Most important part of your writing section, that's your essay writing. Whether you are general or academic, the same rule applies. Same letters, same grading criteria, everything is same. And you have to remember it carries 66.66% of your weightage. So you will spend 40 minutes for sure. Focus on the timing. See, this is why am I repeating this point again and again? Because most of the, if you're not careful, you will end up spending 25 to 30 minutes in your letter writing or your academic task one. That's such a waste of time, because this the essay writing carries exactly double the weightage. So why do you want to waste so much of time in letter writing or academic task one? So you have to be very specific about finishing off the letter or task one in exactly 20 minutes sharp. That's it. Because you have to have 40 minutes to write an essay of around 300 words to 320 words. So the length of the essay says 250. You should not write lesser than 280 words at all. 280 to 320 would be a very good essay writing. Now, broadly speaking, there are 4 different types of essays. One is agree-disagree essay, also termed as opinion essay. For example, a big salary is much more important than job satisfaction. Do you agree or disagree? So this is the first type of question. Agree, disagree, or they ask you for your opinion. The second is, they don't ask you for your opinion, but you have to discuss both the sides. And the questions start with, some people believe X, other people believe Y. So some people think that zoos are cruel and should be closed down. Others, however, believe that zoos can be useful in protecting wild animals. Some other. So in this, they do not tell you to take a stand. At times, they'll ask you, discuss both views only. They'll not ask your opinion. And at times, they'll tell you, discuss both views and give your opinion. So the same discuss both views have 2 parts. One is, they just ask you to give both the views. It's not subjective in nature. They don't ask what you as a person feel, or they might ask you to give your opinion. So now you have to understand the difference. If they do not ask your opinion, please don't give. If they're not asking, you're not supposed to give. Just talk about both the views. So I will not come. You can say that, okay, statistics show that most people prefer this. That way you can say, but the word I should not be there, because if they're not asking your opinion, you will not give your opinion. Next is advantage, disadvantage topic. Lots of topics on advantage, disadvantage. A lot of places in the world rely on tourism as a main source of income. Unfortunately, tourism can also be a source of problem if it is not managed well. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of tourism? Now, in all these topics, you can also have 2 parts. So for example, this answer would have ended with what are the advantages and disadvantages of tourism. So I'll tell you advantage body first para, an example. Disadvantage, body second para, give an example. Okay, so and then you give an overall conclusion. Now at times, in any of the question type, the question itself is divided into two parts. Not this one. Do you think that the benefit of tourism outweighs drawback? It's basically advantage, disadvantage. Now there are some questions which have two parts to it. Now what happens is that, and I've seen it happening with many students, is that you tend to focus on one part, for example, giving a lot of information in part 1 and not giving that much of information in part 2. So there are two point essays, but you focus more on point number 1 and less on point number 2. See, 60%, 40% is good, but you can't make it like 80%, 20%. So I'm going to show you those also. But in short, what I'm saying is that you cannot have an exact 50% weightage in both the sides, but you, even if your essay has two pointers that you need to work on, you can go maximum 60% and 40%. So you can start with 40% and the second part will have 60%, or first part 60-40. If you go do 70-30 or 80-20, it's an imbalanced answer and your scores will be deducted. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given you a two statement essay writing. So broadly though, there are these 4 types, and other is problem solution. Problem of obesity, solution. Problem of traffic congestions, solution. Problem of species becoming endangered, what are the solutions? Lots of questions are coming. So recent questions that students have got are questions on obesity, questions on how to deal with pandemics, depression. So you'll have a lot of questions directly and indirectly on uh, your in obviously related to COVID. Something you're going to have for sure, either in speaking or in writing or in reading. May not be directly given, but in a way you can give examples from that. Okay. Now, this is in one, like, we say that there's something called a cheat sheet. But before I tell you the examples in depth, this particular slide is just a one slide where you understand how to write an essay. Para 1, introduce the topic, rephrase the question, rephrase the question, rephrase the question, rephrase the question. Anything, any essay writing you do, you are introducing that question to the examiner. Same. Now the next point, when it's an agreed, so I'm going to come to each one of them in detail, but next one is support your argument. Explain example. Example is very, very important in both the bodies, in any body that you do. If it's an advantage, first para advantage, give an example. Second para disadvantage, give an example. If you're talking about a problem, I'm talking about traffic problem or I'm talking about obesity problem, now I'm going to give example of health issues. Remember, everything is example based. So though it's broadly example based answers, everything has to be example based. The second and the third para, as in the body 1 and body 2. Okay, so every essay has to be a 4-paragraph essay. Body 1 and body 2 has to have examples and points, and then you have a conclusion. So more or less conclusion will also, I'm going to show different types of conclusion, but conclusion is, you should always start with to conclude or in conclusion or thus or finally or to recapitulate or to reiterate, all these words. Now, so the first point that I've been telling you, if you look at this point, I'm not reading out entire thing. You can read it at your own free time, but I'm just telling you the main points that I've written for you all. Is understand the question properly so that you don't get deviated from the topic. Whenever you're reading the essay, identify the main keyword. You have to identify the main keyword. Is the topic on goals? Say, for example, if a goal is worthy, then any means taken to achieve it is justifiable. Do you agree or disagree? The question is, if a goal is worthy, then any means taken to achieve it is justifiable. Do you agree or disagree? Now, you have a question on goals, so you will immediately identify the main keyword. So main keyword of the topic is goals and whether goals are justifiable or not. So always identify the keyword. Now, plan your idea for the essay before you start. So before you start in essay writing, you have to plan your essay. You have to map out your idea. So make something like a, just a pointer. Just jot down a couple of points. I have done one for advantage and disadvantage just to show you as to how to map your ideas. I'll show it to you. How to map your ideas. As in, just jot down points before you start writing. Then it becomes a much more organized answer. Now, when you are preparing for the exam, remember there are lots of, if you just type IELTS essays in 2021, you will get the list of all the essays that have come last year. Okay, please have an idea about them. Task 1, you don't have to really work that much. Plan on the essay topics that have come in the last 6 months especially. Okay, just look at the questions in the last 6 months. So basically, because you're all giving in Jan, so I would say Jan, Feb. So from September, October, November, December, last 6 months, look at all the topics which have come in the last 6 months. Be very careful about your management of time, because if you're not completing your answer because of incorrect answer, logical coherence, incoherence and cohesion, you end up getting a 5. If you have not completed your essay, then straight away you get a 5 or a 4, depending on how the other aspects are covered. So an answer without a conclusion, because you did not have the time, can be extremely disastrous for your essay writing. So you have to focus on your timing very, very well. Now, vocab, I told you, has 25% of your score. So in task 1, vocab was comparatively easy. In essay writing, vocab has to be good. Has to be good. Otherwise, very, very tough to cross a 7. Maximum you can get is a 7. Max. 7. Very tough unless you have a good vocab, because 25% of your 25% of your weightage is only in vocab. So the other thing is that try and work on your vocab, but in the other 3 aspects, if you feel that, okay, I do not have that much of time to improve my vocab, do whatever you can. But just remember that the other aspects of it, that is task achievement, coherence and cohesion, and grammatical range and accuracy, you should be getting around 8, 8.5. So what happens even if you get a 7, for example, in the vocab, overall your score can become a 7.5. Okay, or an 8. So what you can do is that ensure, if you feel that vocab can be a challenging part right now, you can just focus on the other 3 aspects and do extremely well in those. Don't ever forget to write an essay of 4 paragraphs. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do one essay with you step by step. So first, before I'm doing this particular essay, I'm going to tell you about the topic which I was telling you. Now, for example, so the topic that I told you is, if a goal is worthy, then any means required to achieve it is justifiable. Do you agree or disagree? Now, you know that the topic is on goals. So the first paragraph is when you paraphrase it. So what is the meaning of paraphrase? The same sentence, like how I taught you in task 1, same. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is the same word, you rephrase in a different way by using different synonyms. So question is, if a goal is worthy, any means taken to achieve it is justifiable. And you can say that the worthiness of a goal totally depends on whether one finds it justifiable or not. Goals require perseverance, hard work, and sincere dedication. Goals need to be smart. So I just did a very easy paraphrase, and then I'm defining the keyword, or I'm writing the or I'm writing the paraphrase in a slightly better vocab. So either you do two things. One is you paraphrase it in a slightly better vocab, but what I would suggest for an 8.5, apart from just doing a paraphrase, write an extra sentence in your introduction. So that is the first step. So I said that goals require perseverance, hard work, and sincere dedication. Then I'm doing a lexical resource, as in I'm using a metaphor. A person without goal is akin to a ship sailing in the sea and does not know where his destination is. So I immediately in paragraph 1, I've ensured that some lexical resource. So remember, lexical resource does not mean only high vocab. You can use simile, metaphor, personification, different sentence variety. You are making your language interesting. Now, I could have started the topic by saying, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. It's a saying by Swami Vivekananda. Now, for example, I can't remember that's by Swami Vivekananda and I do not have the exact word. Just write it and say, as goes the famous saying. You can start with a quote if you can remember, nothing like it. That's called hook statement. So what's a hook statement? Hook statement is called as an attention grabbing statement. Anything which grabs the attention of the reader to your writing is called a hook statement. Hook statement can be in the form of a proverb, a saying, anything. So if you feel that prevention is better than cure, because you're talking about a health essay, okay, and you're talking about preventative measures of health, so sometimes you will immediately come across very simple, you know idiomatic phrases or very simple proverbs. You can just mention that. Now after you do that, because the question is subjective in nature, do you agree or disagree, or any part where they want your opinion, the last line of your first paragraph has to be, in my opinion, if a goal is worthy, any means are not justifiable, or according to me, or I firmly believe that, do whatever you want, but you have to talk about your statement. That's your first paragraph. Now in the following two paragraphs of the goal topic, the skeleton structure, if I tell you, is that it's going to be main point and supporting details. Main point, supporting details. That's the main structure for any essay. Now, for example, when I'm starting my first paragraph of my body, I start with this sentence. For example, I say that there are various types of goals. There are long-term goals, short-term goals, societal goals, personal goals. Then I say, for example, Mahatma Gandhi's goal was to free India from the British rule. His goal was worthy and his means were equally worthy. He did not resort to violent means but ensured that through non-violence and non-cooperation, independence can be achieved. Then maybe I write one line on Quit India movement or on Dandi March or on Satyagraha. Then I say, likewise, I'm using a cohesive device. Nelson Mandela's goal. So either I take Nelson Mandela, write another one or two line, or I say that Mother Teresa's goal was to fight to serve the poorest of the poor, the needy and the downtrodden. And I write one or two lines about his missionaries of charity in Kolkata and how he ensured that the poorest of the poor, the leprosy inflicted patients, everyone are catered to. I want to give a totally different example of Gautam Buddha's goal was spiritual upliftment of mankind. So what I do is that my entire essay has, in both the paragraphs, I divide my examples depending on which two I want to join together. Now, if I say Abraham Lincoln's abolition of slavery, I want to write Gautam Buddha, I'm going to write I'm going to write a negative example. I'm going to write Hitler's goal was like, for example, if I'm talking about the Holocaust, everything that happened in the concentration camp, I want to talk about that. I start the essay, I give a negative example to showcase my point. I'm saying that Hitler felt that the Germans were treated unfairly in the Treaty of Versailles, and he wanted to also show the supremacy of the Aryan race. For him, one of the ways he can do that was extermination of the Jewish community. So, and then you talk about what all he did, the atrocities that he did to gassing of the Jews. So he felt that his goal was worthy. He felt that the means he was taking was absolutely justifiable. So at times you're giving example of Saddam Hussein. You're giving examples of, so basically you're giving counter examples also, but ultimately the topic is same. You are saying that if a goal is worthy, any means are not worthy. That was what you said in your thesis statement. Now you could have gone the other way. You can say that everything is fair in love and war. So I don't believe. I think if I feel the goal is worthy, I don't care what means I take. A sports person wants to win a medal for his country. He can do it in a positive way by controlling of his diet, of his regimen, everything, or he can take drugs to get a competitive advantage. So you can give some generic examples also. Whatever you do, remember one thing, your score depends a lot on your depth of example that you have provided in body 2 and body 3. Rule wise, body 2 and body 3 are exactly the same. The only difference is that in body 2, try to give examples which are slightly more famous, like international rather than national. Okay. And in the third paragraph of the, like in the second paragraph of the body or the third paragraph of the essay, you can give your personal example, friends, family, anything. Books you have read, movies you have watched. Okay. The company that you're working, your perception, your observation about life in general. Now I can give a very random example. A student wants to ace an exam. That's a positive goal. Now he can do it by cheating or he can do it by really studying very hard and stuff like that. Okay. So this third paragraph, make it generic. Don't make the second paragraph, as in the paragraph immediately after the introduction. Remember that paragraph is the most important para. So that para, whatever points you have the strongest example and the strongest points, write it in the first para of the body. So I'm telling you all techniques for an 8.5. Why I'm telling you that the answer that I'm going to show you is a 7.5 answer. Okay, it's not an 8.5 answer because remember it's very difficult to get in. Though they will tell you that these are 8.5 answers, but actually I have seen 8.5 answers are very, 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 very strong answers. Okay, so it's not what what are posted. So remember, depth of examples play a very important role apart from vocab. Vocab again will consider a lot of parts. So this is more to do with content. Now in this content, if you were able to give a lot of very good examples, you end up getting a 9 out of 9 in your task achievement. Now you focus that your grammar is perfectly fine. Now if you end up doing examples which are very, very good, okay, so you get a 9 you can get a 9. Now immediately after that you focus on paragraphing, which is the easiest thing to do. 4 paragraphs, lots of similarly, likewise, however, nonetheless, in conclusion, before example, you use the word to illustrate or to exemplify. Coherence and cohesion is the easiest of these 4 criteria. Easiest. You can easily get a 9. So 9 they normally don't give. They might give you an 8.5 in content, the task achievement. They'll not give you a 9 ever. They'll give you an 8, 8.5. Okay. So now in logical coherence and cohesion, there's a chance of you getting a 9 out of 9. You use paragraphs, you use connecting devices. You just see that the idea is very logical. Like don't, generic idea. So main idea and then you give a specific example. Instead of giving a specific example, suddenly later you again come back with another example. Not like that. Be very specific. The logical progression also comes in coherence and cohesion. Grammatical range and accuracy, you have to focus very well on your, absolutely on your grammar. So next week when we are doing your answers, I'm going to focus on your grammatical part also. And the vocab you have to work on yourself. Remember, always they'll give you this word. After your essay writing, they'll always give this statement: give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. So this is knowledge based. So all the examples that I told you, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, these are all knowledge based. So that's your first para of your body. Experience is you, your family, your friends, books you have read, movies you have watched, sports you have played, anything. Anything. Okay. So now we are going to do this question out of a, so I'm going to show you absolutely step by step so that you understand. Out of a country's health budget, a large proportion should be diverted from treatment to spending on health education and preventive measures. So you will read it 2 to 3 times to understand that, okay, fine, what are the key points. You have a country health budget and it says large proportion should be diverted from treatment to preventive measures. Health education and preventive measures. So rather than treatment, this health education and preventive measures. So focus, read the sentence I'm telling you at least twice to exactly understand what is the question. Very, very important. Otherwise, you'll end up getting distracted from the exact question. Reading the question is very important. Now, paragraph 1 we are going to do. So, rephrase is the one which I told you, simplest way is rephrasing. Now, the same sentence I'm going to rephrase. Out of a country's health budget, a large proportion should be diverted from treatment to spending on health education. Same, I'm just changing the language. Developing and buying medicine is expensive and some believe that money would be better spent on preventing disease from arising in the first place. So, paraphrase in a slightly different way. So, this paraphrase can be 1, 2 or 3 lines. It can be till 3 lines. Remember, the first para, apart from your thesis statement, as in if you have an agree-disagree question wherein you have to talk about your stand, so it can go till 4 lines. Otherwise, 3 lines is fine. For an 8, I do not want you to write 2 lines. Remember, give at least 2, like I would say 3 lines. 1, paraphrase 1 extra line plus this. 3 lines. Now, after that, this is an optional thing which I'm telling you. You may do it or may not do it. In the introductory paragraph itself, you briefly outline what you're going to write in the next 2 para. This is very good for advantage, disadvantage and other topics. In the agree, disagree topic, you may end the first para with this itself. But especially in advantage, disadvantage or discuss both views, you can actually give a brief outline of what you're going to write in your body. For example, it would be a mistake to focus only on prevention as there will always be diseases to treat and spending money on the research and development of medicines might lead to a more effective preventative measure. So, the examiner already knows that what direction the student's essay is going to take. So now this is optional. Remember, it's not a rule. Rule is first 2 other rules. This third line, briefly outlined, is an option. You may or may not do it. As in, you write down in brief what the next para is going to talk about. So this is your first para. Now, first para of the body. So you will always start with the main point or a topic sentence. It's also called a topic sentence. So the never start a paragraph with an example. Never start with for example or to illustrate. It has to have at least 1 line. I would say 2 lines. Preventative actions do not always stop illness from occurring is the topic sentence of that paragraph or the heading of that paragraph. So you have to give a topic sentence for every para. In short, it's almost like giving a heading for the para that you're going to write. So you write preventative actions do not always stop illness from happening. Then assume that the reader doesn't know anything about this topic and explain your point clearly. One glance at the healthy living section of a bookstore shows that there are opposing opinions on what to do to keep illness away. For instance, give a real life or made up example. Smoking is an identified cause of cancer, but choosing not to smoke does not guarantee that you will not develop lung cancer because it still occurs in non-smokers. So in short, what I'm trying to tell you is that, see, in all examples that you get, in the essay topics that you get, it's not, like, I give you examples of, for example, I'm giving in a topic on creativity, innovation, I give example of Steve Jobs, I give example of Henry Ford. There's an example where you're talking more about a science-based example. I'm giving example of uh, uh, Charles Darwin. I'm giving example of Einstein's theory of relativity. Now, all those things I'm giving depending on the essay topic, and I feel that, okay, I can give a person-based example. In some example, I can give World War as an example, French Revolution. I can talk about the Mughal dynasty and give that as an example in body 2. I can do whatever I want. Now, some examples, at times you may not be able to give a person-based example. Then you can give a generic example also. In this, actually, you can give a lot of specific example. But anyway, uh, I'll just read this one and then I'll tell you what are the different examples you could have given here as in specific example for this topic. So here it's talking about smoking. So this is more or less the framework. You can give one more paragraph to basically elaborate on that, you know. Now, so although it is undeniable that preventative measures increase chances of a healthy life, they will never ensure a disease-free world. Now, this part is called I'm expecting that, okay, you can give a counter argument. So, I'm expecting your counter argument, and before that, I'm taking that into consideration and giving an opposing position. You can do that also. Do whatever you want. Basically, you have to give an example. And remember, that's the thing. So, there is actually a paragraph called a rebuttal paragraph. Now, see, for example, the essay that I was telling you, okay, that a goal is worthy, any means are justifiable. And I very, proudly say that only right means are justifiable, only proper means are justifiable. Now, I have used this word. Now, there is a paragraph which can be before the conclusion, which is termed as a rebuttal paragraph. That is a part of normally in GRE exams, GRE and GMAT when I teach. GMAT, so they have, in MBA, they have stopped giving examples like essays, but in GRE, when essay writing is also main part, you have to give a rebuttal. Rebuttal is a counter argument. So I say that, okay, only right means are justifiable, proper means. Now, before I end, I say that, well, if there's a daily laborer, daily wage earner in a underdeveloped country who can hardly make ends meet, dearth of funds and dearth of, but you have a ailing parent or a ailing child, and you steal a loaf of bread or you do something illegal and immoral. You're not doing something for power, for lust, for whatever, but you're doing something to save the life of your loved ones. During these cases, is it justifiable? You can put forward questions. Now, questions on, there are lots of questions in IELTS on laws and legal system. So in a law-based questions, any law is justified or not. Now, there is a question on mercy killing, euthanasia. Do you, now, whether it is, you want your, now I can say that, no, I do not want my loved ones in a vegetative state. I'm absolutely okay if euthanasia is given, but the other rule is, the other thought is, you can't play the role of God. Now in India, remember, I can't remember the year, but Aruna Schonberg's case, it became a huge thing about euthanasia. So this lady, when she was 24 years old in Bombay, she was raped by the watchman. And it was almost like a Nirbhaya rape case, but the unfortunate thing was that she survived. And she was in coma for almost 48 to 50 years. So, when Aruna Schonberg turned, I think 52 or 54, yeah, I think no, 60 years old. I can't remember how many years she was in coma. Now, there was this thing that she is anyway in coma, she is brain dead. Why is she not, why is euthanasia not allowed in India? So it was a huge, I don't remember the year, it was a big thing. It was a big thing. And the nurses and others who were taking care of her in that Mumbai hospital, they obviously developed a soft corner for her, and they did not want. But there were lots of others, lots of NGOs. They felt that what is the point of her being in a vegetative state for more than 25, 28 years. So something like that, something controversial, law related questions you're going to have a lot. So always take up examples and read. See, basically remember one thing. Unless you, the most important thing for your uh, for expansion of your knowledge would be to read every single day of your life. That is the only advice I can give you. There should not be a single day that you have spent not reading. Even if you're reading for 15 minutes, it's absolutely okay. Unless you read, there's no way you are going to, if it's not a part of your subconscious mind, how will you, from where will you generate ideas? Tell me, it's not even inside you, right? See, to get an idea, it has to be a part of your subconscious mind. Only then it will come to your conscious mind. So unless you're reading, that is the most important advice I can give you. It's not specifically related to any exams. I'm just talking about your general, uh, enhancement of knowledge is reading every day. 15 minutes. It starts with 15 minutes every day without fail. Don't go to sleep unless you read for 15 minutes. I make it a point with all my students. Make it a point. Don't sleep as if you're, otherwise don't eat the next day. One meal, leave it if you have not read. So next day read for half an hour and then eat. Very, very important. You have to do that. See, I was very, very clear with my daughter. Even when she was 2.5 years old, I would not let her sleep. From that time only, I would say that read a book, see pictures, and then only you're going to sleep. So I had this habit, and I ingrained it to such an extent that now she there's not a single day she goes without reading. In contrast, I could not do that with my son. Now, but you should do it, at a very young age. If you're parents, like with your child, then it'll be better. Always inculcate the habit of reading. And for us, I would say every day, without fail reading. See, it's not only that because I'm in the academic line, I read, but I think for all of us, it's very important to read every day. And you will never be able to improve your knowledge or your vocab or your creative thinking skills unless you do a lot of reading. That's for sure. Now look at para 3. Para 3, body paragraph 2 is again you take another topic sentence, another example. Remember, both the paragraphs should have an example. Don't think that, okay, I'm going to only write example in my body para 2 and not give an example in body para 3. No, you can't do that. You have to give example in both the paras. So again, instead we need to continue funding the research and development of medicine to better understand the cause as well as the prevention of disease. If we keep looking for ways to fight and treat sickness, we are more likely to find better ways to stop them from occurring. For example, while searching for a way to cure a cold, scientists discovered that an effective way to avoid catching one was frequent hand cleaning, but prior to the scientists, it was mistakenly believed that avoiding cold air would keep the virus away. You know why? Remember, because of the pandemic, there's a strong chance of you all getting a question related to health. Preventative measures. I want you all to focus on health related topics, get a lot of vocab on that. There's a strong chance your essay writing will be. But obviously, we have that list of essays. So go through all the essays in the last few months. So as I told you, that opposing view, you can have a separate opposing view before the conclusion, or you can have an opposing view with every paragraph. So opposing view is something which I'm going to leave it to you, whether you want to write it. So at times you might feel, now for example, questions like, is technology a boon or a bane? In that, opposing view is very easy to write. You say technology is a boon, write everything about positive aspects of technology in the field of science, in the field of transport, in the field of education, everything. Then before you end, you say, however, technology may not always be a boon, and at times it might be detrimental for mankind. Now, either you talk about cybercrime, or you talk about glued to Netflix and this one wasting a lot of time, addiction, or you talk about obesity. Teenagers and youngsters do not, nowadays generation, they enjoy virtual game more than going out in the sun and going outside and playing anything. So my entire essay was beneficial, but then before I ended, I give a opposing position, and then I say, however, technology is more a boon than a bane. So I say, okay, fine, I look at it, I know that there are negative aspects to technology, like there are negative aspects to technology also, but if I'm weighing the pros and cons, I see it is more positive than negative. So you talk about that in the last paragraph, like basically then you make a 5-paragraph essay. Introduction, body 1, body 2, the counter para, which is termed as a rebuttal, 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 and then the conclusion. Okay, so conclusion is basically the rephrasing of your opinion and summing up your 2 supporting points. Or, so now, for example, prevention goes far in improving people's life and reducing suffering, but we still are not certain that these methods work for all. So continued investment into research and treatment is important. So, more or less given that, but you can, there are different ways of answering a conclusion. One is you just summarize, the other is you say what is the future trend likely to be. For example, I have a question on global warming. I say, if this trend continues, we will see a future where there will be dearth of natural resources, scarcity in XYZ, something like that. So you're talking about future trends. Or in some questions, you can provide solutions. We as responsible citizens should ensure that trees are not felled, water is not wasted, things like that. So the conclusion, don't make a very long conclusion, remember. Don't give an example in a conclusion. Examples are, no example in introduction, no example in conclusion. Examples are only in paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. Or if you want to give a small example in rebuttal, that's fine. But you will not give any examples in the last para. Now I'm going to show this entire essay once for you. Okay, now just go through it. I'll give you 1 minute. Just go through the entire essay. Now, this example will be a 7.5 answer. Why is it not going to be a 8 or an 8.5 answer? Now, what I could have done is, instead of giving a very generic example of smoking, For example, I am taking bronchitis and pneumonia as an example, and I am stating what actually causes bronchitis, acute bronchitis. Is it caused by smoking? Is it air pollution, dust, toxic gases? I'm talking about the symptoms of typical bronchitis: lack of energy, wheezing, fever. Okay. Now, what I am doing is that I am looking at a specific ailment. I am talking about using a couple of words which are thematic vocabulary, like bacterial infection, or does not matter if the words are very, very simple. Remember, does not matter at all. You are using words like symptoms and drugs and surgery, any prescription, mucus, anything, anti-inflammatory drug. So this would be a vocab heavy passage. Now, when I say vocab, does not mean it has to be very difficult words. Remember that. Don't assume that vocab means it has to be very high words. No, it has to be a thematic vocab. Plus, if you write one or two hard words, it's absolute. Now, I use words like steroids because it's a question on medicine, and that I use bronchodilator because I'm giving bronchitis as an example, and I'm actually, you know, describing some of the preventative measures. For example, do I talk about drinking fluids every 1 or 2 hours, or do I talk about if you have a moist, productive cough, focus on the color of the sputum, use a humidifier, try herbal tea. I can say anything. Don't smoke. So I'm talking about preventative measures. Eat a healthy diet, wash your hands with soap. So the same question. So if you have a question related to COVID, anything to do with pandemic diseases, remember, be very specific. The more specific you are with your examples and the thematic vocabulary that you give, the better marks you get. So this answer, though it seems like a very, very good answer, okay, but you will not get an 8.5. Now, for example, I could have also spoken about the health budget. Now, for example, health budget. Now, I can absolutely give an example that maybe the annual budget for the finance minister Nirmala Sitaraman of my country, India, will find it very difficult to segregate this many, because so you can take COVID as an example and say that, okay, right now we need, but a country where most of the people are below the poverty line, basic needs of food, clothing and lodging are not met. So how will our finance minister have the, or will be able to be in a position to spend on India's public health expenditure? So it's not that you have to come with a conclusive answer. So unless you're doing that, remember that to get an 8.5 or an 8, examples have to be that specific. Unfortunately, all the answers that are there do not focus on specific examples. You look at any place in the internet, it will not. So what you have to do is, whenever you're looking at any of these essay topics, remember that don't read the sample response. There's no point, because then none of them give you examples, proper examples. Still they'll tell you it's an 8.5 answer, 9 answer. That's all. Absolutely, that's wrong. You have to remember that. Okay, because I'm in this teaching line for the last 23 years. So I'm just telling you, it's absolutely wrong. You have to remember. So your examples are the examples that you write. Okay. So now I'm just going to give some examples of paraphrase now. Paraphrasing. Now see, for example, if it says the school student listened attentively to the podcast. This is the question. Okay. And my paraphrase would be school student, pupil. Attentively, carefully. Does not matter. One is easy, one is hard. Does not matter. Podcast, digital audio file. So remember, whatever happens, your first para has to be a paraphrase para. First line. After that, you line and write an extra word, because that's the starting of your essay writing and your academic task 1, academic writing, not general. General, I told you. So this paraphrasing part you have to understand. Now, try to use as many synonyms as possible. Right now, what I want you to do, See, I did not have that much of space because in 2 hours I can't cover a whole lot of things. We'll do that again in next week. But I'm going to do a couple of vocab words with you. But some of them I've written it down just for you to get an idea as to how you are going to prepare on your vocab. Now, you want to say difficult task, demanding task, arduous task, challenging task. Appreciate, you want to say cherish, treasure. Now, these are, remember, the vocab part will also help you in your speaking section. So, as such, when you're doing the vocab section, it's going to not only help, it's actually going to help you in all the 3 sessions: reading, speaking, and writing. So, speaking and writing, direct help. Confuse. My thoughts were muddled. I was bewildered. I was perplexed. I was baffled. Muddled, I forgot to write. Hardworking. Diligent. Scrupulous. Industrious. Industrious has nothing to do with industry. Industrious is hardworking. Enterprising. Lazy. Lethargic. Slothful. Idle. Lackadaisical. Indolent. So what you should do is that whatever words are coming to your mind right now, which you think that you may write, straight away go to thesaurus. You write down the word, go to thesaurus, and find out. You might have 30 word list. Okay, so now what you should do is randomly don't pick up words. Okay, now for example, you've picked up perplexed. Now the word perplexed, you think that okay, fine, I like the word. So what you do is that they take the word perplex and say and write down perplex in a sentence. Always write it down. Then you will see the usage of that word. This is the way I used to do. This is the way we were taught, So I was working as a journalist with Telegraph in Calcutta, and it was like an internship. We were told to write sentences every Wednesdays and Fridays. That time I used to think, it, my God, what a horrible work making us write sentences. Okay, and then I realized that it was also one of the reasons why I understood the importance of vocab in communication, written and spoken English. When you start writing sentences, that's the reason when you all were young, you had to write sentences. Remember, we all used to write sentences. So, affluent society, rich instead of rich family. Affluent. Wealthy is common, but affluent. Rich is a very, very, like, it's a colloquial word, whatever you speak. You can't write words that you speak if you want to get a high score. So like that, I want you to focus on vocab. Now, the other way of focusing on vocab is that when you are looking at the topics, take the broader topic. For example, topic, when you go through the list of topics, you see that crime, law, and punishment are there. So what you do is that you try to gather as many words. Remember one thing, please remember one thing. It is thematic vocabulary. It does not matter whether you are choosing a difficult word or an easy word. It is word related to the theme. So when I say prosecution and trial and accused and wrongdoer and jury and judiciary, abduction, manslaughter, and I have a question on law or punishment or crime, and I have used these words, definitely I'm going to get more marks. Now, for example, the word absolve or acquitted. He was acquitted. These are all high vocab. Free from blame is absolved. He was absolved from his crime. Now, imprisonment, he was sent to prison. Instead of that, if you say incarceration, it's a very high level vocab for imprisonment. So, even imprisonment is a very good word. Someone who commits a crime, instead of saying the person who committed the crime, you are saying perpetrator. Obviously, you are going to get more marks. So, whether you are doing the cue card section of task 2, speaking, or any of the essays, do not worry about the strength of the vocab. Just remember, whatever happens, the moment you get the topic, you make it a point that I'm going to use at least 5 words related to the topic, the theme of the topic. Now, for example, environment. Now, if I have a topic on environment, am I using words like ecosystem? Am I using words like ecology, biodiversity, natural habitat, endangered species, deforestation, sustainable, renewable resource? So these are all thematic vocab. So please understand, vocab does not only mean high vocab. At times, if your answer has a lot of thematic vocabulary, also you end up getting an 8. But rule wise, at least 3 words should be slightly stronger than the normal day-to-day, at least 3. So if you have 3 slightly stronger words and rest of them are thematic vocab, you still end up getting an 8. In cue card also, I want you to focus on that. Now, for example, you have a cue card. No, I think cue card section I'll do when we are doing speaking. Now, technology. Technology related topic. Advancing innovation, invention, mechanism, robotic, globalizations, processor, all words to do with technology. So these are all your thematic vocabulary. Now, you will see that one part says of when you're looking at the entire scoring criteria, one of the criteria says different sentence structure. You will see that there's a point saying different sentence structure. So what is the meaning of that? For example, in some question, if you have Mary gave Joe a ring, it's an active voice because you have the subject, verb, object. You make it passive. A ring was given to Joe by Mary. So answers can be a combination. Your answer maybe mostly active voice is always preferred over passive voice. Remember that. But to show different sentence structure, you can write simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence. Active voice, passive voice. So they want variety in the sentence structure. So passive voice normally is, if I say Rahul Dravid plays cricket, and if I say cricket is being played by Rahul Dravid, actually passive voice is not a very good sentence. Active voice is always preferred. But because IELTS expects you to give a variety of sentence structure, so at least in one sentence, overall you'll focus on mainly active voice, but maybe in one place you can make it into passive voice. Now, other forms of transformation in a sentence. A fly is on the wall, there is a fly on the wall. Okay. We consider Joe intelligent, it is Joe whom we consider intelligent. So these are all different sentence formation. So I'm basically trying to tell you that don't write in the same order. Same type of sentences do not write. Do variation in sentences. Now, whenever you are looking at a topic, immediately the moment you get the topic, decide on the introduction and the conclusion straight away first. Then you'll focus on the body. Okay. Now, if you look at this question, so I'm just doing an introduction and conclusion first. The question is, blood sport have become a hot spot for debate in recent years. As society develops, it is increasingly seen as an uncivilized activity and cruel to the helpless animals that are killed. Blood sports should be banned. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Okay. So blood sports, again, as I told you, you have to read that question again. Blood sports have become a hot topic. As society develops, it is increasingly seen as an uncivilized activity and cruel to the helpless animals. I think in today's newspaper only it came. Something like in Times of India. Somewhere in Karnataka. It talks about this 2 people. Just check today's newspaper, you will see. Bullocks.
I think it is related to Jellicut, I think.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I was reading it. There was this word called, there was a new word which I learned today. Forgot, mutted, gutted, some specific word they have used. I wrote it down now, I can't remember. So that is what you are supposed to do. The moment you come across new words, just write it down. Now look at it. Introduction, focus on the introduction. Despite the fact that killing animals for sports is popular in modern society, it remains a contentious issue. Contentious is debatable. I believe that blood sports. So now these answers are, what, that I expect for, normally for when you're going there for studies only, then what happens is that your minimum score is 6 in each of the module and overall score of 6.5. For them, it's fine. Just one line paraphrase and immediately after that thesis statement. You all don't do that. You make at least 2 lines of the introduction and then the thesis statement. So introduction and conclusion. Think about the introduction and conclusion right away. And if you're doing the computer-based test, finish up introduction and conclusion. Then write the body. So then you know, even if you do not have the time, you know where to stop. Even if you know the third para, you have hardly written 4-5 lines and you have not given an example, just write one line and stop, so that you don't get stressed. Especially in computer-based example, you should in exam you should take avail this opportunity of finishing of the introduction and conclusion and then write the body. Then what happens, you don't have that fear that okay, for logical coherence and cohesion, if I'm not completing the essay, I'm going to say, because remember, exactly 1 hour the timer stops and you cannot write a single word. It's just disabled. Okay, so be very careful. So finish off writing your introduction and conclusion. And if you're doing a paper-based test, the problem is that you have to continuously look at your timer. Continuously look at your timer. Okay, so conclusion, you always use a concluding phrase when you're starting. The examiner has to know that you're writing a conclusion. In conclusion, thus, finally, you have to use words like that. And so at times you can talk about what you're hoping, what you're fearing, what are the recommendations about the future, anything you can write. So make your, and the examiner has to know that the answer is coming to an end. Okay, so always start. To conclude, it is clear that blood sports must be prohibited, as no civilized society should allow the pain and suffering of animals simply for fun. I hope that government around the world discuss this issue with haste and forbid this inhumane type of sport as soon as possible. Then finish introduction, finish conclusion. Then you take your own time, talk about different. You can talk about the Roman era, from where in the amphitheater. See, for these examples, you remember the amount of reading is very, very important. Right now also, I would say that there are lots of examples I've given for you all, so you can read them. Just remember one thing, none of these examples are with this essay. I think was a very was a 8 answer. So now I'm just going to show you another type of example wherein you give examples from surveys or plans and proposals. For example, recent scientific research, if you look at this line, for example, recent scientific research by the UK government demonstrated that 90% of people in their 30s spend over 20 hours per week on Messenger and similar applications to chat with their friends instead of meeting up and spending quality time together or doing sport. Fine. So this question was basically on how people spend a lot of time on technology. Tech has made man more social, whether you agree or disagree. Now, for example, I want to use the word damaging. I'm never ever going to use the word damaging. I'm going to use the word detrimental, deleterious. I will never use this word only. Now, if I want to say that always remember that your focus on good words, randomly in an answer, you use good words, your score will become good. So this is an example of these examples are also good examples. Remember, they also come as high level examples. You make up a survey. See, right now what you can do, find out what WHO does, UNICEF does, UNESCO does, maybe Narmada Bachao Andolan, take 1 or 2 Indian organizations. So just have a very rough idea as to what are the main areas that they are catering to. Now remember, does not matter. Nobody is going to look at. So, but you have to know that, okay, fine. WHO is about the health. UNICEF is about this. United Nations is about this. UN is about this. So you have to just know that part. That's more than enough. See, according to, I'll just give you one important point here. So according to Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, he had stated that there are 3 modes of communication, oral or written, which can be a very persuasive answer. They are termed as ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos, as in ETHOS, ethos means anything in which you give credit to a person or an organization or a person who has good knowledge. For example, if I'm giving an example of fossils, dinosaur fossil, I'm giving an example of your paleontologist. If I'm talking about how to take care of your tooth and brushing morning and night, I'm giving a noted dentist has stated. I'm talking about innovation, I give Steve Jobs as an example. So all the examples related to person who is specialized in a field. So that's called ethos. The third is pathos. I'll come to it later. The third is logos. Logos is anything to do with statistics, logistics, numbers and surveys and plans and everything. So if you look at all your Shashi Tharoor's, last week I was again going through Shashi Tharoor's that absolutely brilliant talk on how how the British has actually spoiled our country, and our GDP went down from this percentage to that percent, and he gives a lot of numbers and such a convincing answer. You should read that. You should listen to that. You should listen to that speech by Shashi Tharoor. It's like absolutely unbelievable. Okay, so if you haven't, please do. So you will see that he gives a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, a lot of surveys. So that's logos. So ethos and logos play a very important role in your writing. Pathos as such is not related to essay writing, but pathos is more to do with uh, involving feeling of pride, fear, love, hatred, skepticism, anything to do with evoking a feeling. So that can be good when you're doing the speaking section, not really applicable to this one, the writing section. So ethos, pathos and logos. So these are the three different concepts. They say, so if you look at all the great speeches of the world, okay, look at all the great orators. See Barack Obama's speech. See George Bush's speech. See the way Narendra Modi speaks. So he knows actually how to connect. So whether it's all whatever it is, but the way you speak can also say. I'll just give you an example, which is one of my favorite. There are lots of my very favorite speeches that I have almost like memorized. So one speech was from Charlie Chaplin's movie. So all his movies were silent movie, but I think the last 2-3 movies were you had the vocal part of it. So in that, I feel that that is applicable to us even now. So he says that something like greed has poisoned men's soul, has barricaded the world with hatred. Then something like we have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery has given us abundance, but has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical. Our cleverness has made us hard and unkind. I'm not saying the exact word, but like more or less. We think too much and feel too little. More than humanity, we need more than machine, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. A very beautiful speech, and it was written somewhere in 1930 or 35, and I was thinking that it's applicable even now. Now, was like if you look at Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, absolutely brilliant speech. You should read this speech. It's called an I Have a Dream speech. So when Martin Luther King Jr. gives a speech, I Have a Dream speech was a public speech by somewhere in 1963. Though he was assassinated not after the speech, but later. Another thing, because he was, his speech was, you should listen to his actual speech also, like transcript anyway. You listen to see to it, but listen, because it's there on YouTube, you should listen to it. So he says, so there are some lines which I actually really liked. So after he gives the initial introduction, he starts with I have a dream that one day, something like that. So one or two of the lines, again, I'm not telling you the exact line, whatever I can remember. He says, I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. Then I have a dream that one day in the sweltering heat of injustice, no, sorry, something like, I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state which is sweltering with the heat of injustice, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. One of my favorite lines here is, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So listen to that. So I have, like, it's a huge speech, but just go through it. So this is pathos. Through your speech or through your writing, you're evoking feelings of, as I told you, patriotism, skepticism, hatred, pride, whatever. So rule wise, according to Aristotle, to be a good orator, you need to understand the importance of ethos, pathos, and logos. If your answer is predominantly focusing on one of these aspects and maybe slightly touching on the other one, see, it's not possible to have all three, because it becomes very pompous, showy. No need to do so much also. But if you can do one of this, nothing like that. So that's the reason you have to talk about. Now see, now for example here, if you look at this example, for example, an extensive study at Oxford University illustrate that people who work or study abroad and use applications like FaceTime and WhatsApp are less likely to experience loneliness and feel out of the loop. So he's obviously talking for this and saying all positive words. So remember, example, as I told you, can be anything. Okay. Now these examples you can do. Now I'm just going to tell you, I don't have anything much to tell you because that's a broader topic. Now I'm just going to tell you that when you are going through the slides, I want you all to focus on these slides also, because this is a template of an advantage, disadvantage essay topic. So the first para, as I told you, is exactly the same. Second para, you will introduce the advantage, explain and give an example. Second para, you introduce the disadvantage, explain and give an example. Don't combine advantage and disadvantage in the same paragraph at all. Either you want to start with disadvantage, go with advantage, absolutely okay. No mixing of advantage, disadvantage in the same para and then giving explanation and examples. Never do that. The logical part of the sentence part, logical coherence and cohesion, you'll not get marks if you do that. So introduce the advantage, explain, give an example, introduce the disadvantage, explain, example. Here you don't have to give a rebuttal because anyway you're talking about both the sides. Both the sides you will obviously you will not give a rebuttal paragraph. So just give a conclusion. That's your advantage, disadvantage. Now this is just to tell you that how this is too big. Now when you are brainstorming ideas, you, like, I have, because I had to write it on the PPT, so I made it slightly elaborate. You don't have to make it so elaborate. But basically what I'm trying to tell you is that just write down pointers. Provides job advantage, opportunities for local entrepreneurs, tourist spending, boosts both local and national economy, helps maintain tradition. So write down positives, write down negatives. Now decide, okay, fine, maybe I'm going to write an example on increased crime, or I'm going to talk about destruction of natural environment, and I'm going to talk about maybe Taj Mahal as an example in advantage. So decide, so make your pointers and then you decide what to write, what not to write. Okay, so this is an example of advantage, disadvantage. Now the third is essay on both views. When you have to write an essay on both views, look at the format. So paraphrase is same. Now you have to give both the views and you have to give a thesis statement and you have to give an outline statement. In both views, you have to give an outline statement as to what are you going to cover. So you have to talk about both the views. Like in this essay, I will talk about X and Y. So basically the starting idea of point paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 both has to be mentioned in your outline statement. Now, whenever you are giving both paragraph answers, you state your first viewpoint, discuss reason why you agree or disagree, and example. So it has to have slightly longer point when you're talking about both views, because it'll always be discuss. These are called, see, I'll just tell you, there are two types of essays. One is persuasive or argumentative essay, and the other is called expository essay. The argumentative or persuasive essays are essays where you have to say, do you agree or disagree types, discuss which is better and why. Some people believe X, others believe Y, what is better. So that is persuasive or argumentative. You are arguing that your side is better than other. Remember, argument is not the normal argument that we talk about. It's basically you're giving points saying that your side is better. The second type of essay is called expository essay, also called as explanatory essay. In the typical jargon of essay writing, we use the word expository. Expository is more explanatory in nature. If an essay is expository in nature, what are the qualities of a good leader? So whenever it's what are the dangers of, I remember in one of my IELTS exam, I got this topic, dangers of ski diving and some 4-5 sports. What are the dangers of all those sports? Some anything which is basically not for fun. So that was in one of my essay topic, I remember, where I could not get any examples because I do not know, I just blanked out. Okay, so that's the reason I remember that topic very well. So in a both view essay, you have to discuss or reason and example. Discuss, reason, example. So you have to focus on this. So I have given a couple of examples on this. So I want you to read this. Now, apart from that, remember one thing. You will definitely focus on cohesive devices. Either to start, to beginning when you're starting the first paragraph, in between, predominantly, primarily, significantly, to focus on emphasis. Thus, all those words, apart from on the contrary. So remember the words for vocab, as in lexical resources, logical coherence and cohesion. Apart from paragraph, they also want you to focus on these words. On the contrary, to start, before example, giving an example, for so to illustrate, to substantiate, for example, all those words. So this essay is a very good essay. Okay, so go through the essay, this particular essay. Again, example could have been much better here. When you're talking about economic progress, it's not a very good example. But overall, the essay is very good. I want you to read that. Okay, so this is for today. So now tell me if you have any doubts, any questions. See, basically you have to write. Honestly speaking, write and send me answers. Neha, anyway, yours I'm going to discuss. And otherwise, both of you will write and say, start giving your mock tests. Start giving your mock tests. Unless you're giving your mock tests, I can't, honestly check your answers and give you a feedback. You have to give your mock tests. Right now, only Neha has given. Rest of you, please start giving your mock tests.